to create job, and people that do not have job, let them have jobs so that no stealing, no corruption. All those people who used to beg. So we want to abandon.
Welcome back. It's still our Independence Day special broadcast, and we are moving straight to the judiciary. Earlier on, we played a report done by Ifeoluwa Oshukeye, where he tried to chronicle what we encountered during the military when the decree was in use and the constitution that we have now. So we are going to be doing a whole lot of analysis on these issues. And we have what I describe as competent hands in the studio, live in the studio, so there's not going to be any network problem. Our own Liberos Oshoma, I don't know, I'm tired of calling him a lawyer because sometimes he speaks as an accountant, he speaks as activist, it's all-rounder. Liberos Oshoma, good morning. And happy independence.
Yes,
whether
I'm
it is
happy. I'm happy.
And
I
we
chose
have,
to be happy.
And we have Dele Farotimi, the man I prefer, or because he prefers to refer to himself as a retired lawyer. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. K. Calling myself a retired lawyer is my way of divorcing myself of complicity in the judicial mess that we have in our country. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm a retired lawyer.
That's a good way to start this discussion, but I won't start with you now. Liberal Sushoma, we might need a bit of education here. Some would say that if not for the decree, the states that some people celebrate today wouldn't have happened, the creation of states. But let's look at the merits, if there are any or at all, about the decree we had and the constitution we're supposed to enjoy. And are we truly enjoying that?
If not that these states were decreed into existence, that probably we won't have states that we have today. Can you, in all honesty, call what we have today as viable, compared to the only one we have ever created through a referendum? That's the Midwestern states. And so for me, when people say, yes, we're celebrating state creation and that they were decreed into existence, we probably would have done it, better, far better. The people would have had a voice in determining whether they want to, whether they wanted that state or they wanted those boundaries the way, it was proposed. It probably would have been better. And so I'm not one to sit down and begin to celebrate, things that were decreed into existence without, consultation with the people. Coupled with the fact that, we say, oh yes, we have a 1999 constitution, but we also forget that it was decreed into existence. It was a schedule to Decree 24 of 1999. Even people that participated in the election, a lot of them did not even see the constitution that, they were haggling to rule with, including the president then. So, I'm not one to celebrate decrees. And it is obvious now, very, very, very visible to the blind and audible to the deaf, that these states that you are celebrating today are not viable. Some of them can't pay salaries until they go to, a big brother center. That's why I call it feeding bottle, federal government, federal structure, until they get there to get bailout to pay. And so these same people that decreed these states into existence also decreed what you call a federal structure. Mind you, Aguiyi Ironsin was killed for running this unitary system of government that we run today, that we are running away from discussing. He was killed for having a unitary system of government. But today, we cloak ourselves in a federal structure. But in real sense, what we have is a unitary system. So all of those states creation, that's not the way you create states.
Let's get your thoughts, even though you say you prefer to be called a diverse lawyer. I don't know whether that will apply in the conversation, but let's get your thoughts on this subject matter.
There is a peculiarly Nigerian predilection, and that is the one where we have a tendency to take a word and then infuse it with a uniquely Nigerian meaning, and then even the English wouldn't recognize their word anymore. One of them is the word federalism.
Right.
If Nigeria is a federation, I'm Chinese. Let that sink in. A friend of mine called it a fraudal system. Another called it a feudal, I don't even know. It's a fraud. It is anything but federal. Nigeria is the only place in the whole world, and I stand to be corrected on these, where the federal government creates federating units. It is incongruous. It has never happened. It is not known to law or to the English language. It doesn't make sense. A federation means, and let's be clear about this, none of the regional leaders would have agreed to be part of a unitary Nigerian state. The leaders of the western part of Nigeria, I've read extensively, I've read Chief Obafemi Awolowo's works. They always knew they were contending with a feudal force coming out of northern Nigeria. The only protection they could see, which made them agree to a one Nigeria, was that there would be a federal system with strong regions.
That's true.
That was the agreement. A state was stolen in 1966. And the bandits who stole Nigeria in 1966 have not left Nigeria. We lost our citizenship in 1966. We can go ahead and be bandying words like federalism, unitarism. If you must call Nigeria anything, it's a unitary state. But foundational to the mess and putrefaction you see all around you and why we are not happy on the occasion of the lie called independence 60 years ago is the realization that in truth and content, Nigerians have been reduced from citizens to subjects and serfs. And our rulers have become untouchable men who rule and govern with impunity.
Okay. You choose to call them rulers.
They are not
not
leaders.
leaders.
Don't kid yourself. Stop lying to yourself.
Liberals, my confusion with history here is that the military had been there, and the proper thing for them is to leave. And now they had to leave, but they couldn't leave without a constitution. So I think the problem is, my opinion, it's the people that took over. What stops you from giving us a new constitution? Why should we continue to say, oh, the military handed the constitution to us and we refuse to do another draft?
You see, let's position history properly so that in time to come, you know, our names will be written in gold in the sand of time. You know, so when you talk about, oh yes, they handed you a constitution, first and foremost, I take your mind back to all the constitutional debates that predated independence and how heated those arguments and those meetings were. And so if you also remember, I take you back a little bit to the creation of states and the debates on federating unit between Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I've forgotten the journalist's name now, a British man. He said in his entire life, he had never seen a debate as robust as that, parliamentary debate as robust as that. You know, they took 2 days. The first day for Chief Obafemi Awolowo and the next day for Nnamdi Azikiwe. And Nnamdi Azikiwe made, Chief Obafemi Awolowo made, you know, a very profound statement then that if you start creating states today, until Ikene, his hometown, becomes a state, we will not rest. And so that's the kind of works that goes into making of a constitution. And so, knowing fully well that, look, if you bring a bunch of people together, knowing the kind of, you know, mental capacity and intellectual tendencies that they have, you know, it will be difficult for them to agree. Right from the 60s. Even in that debate, Nnamdi Azikiwe made also another statement that when two incompatible mates, they can coexist if they agree to agree, but unagree to disagree. But the question is, the people that we brought together in 1999, were they the set of persons you truly would believe will sit down and agree to agree or agree to disagree. And that's why, even like I told you, even the constitution that they were to work with, the document, none of them saw it. But there were people who had, a few who had a common enemy in the military, and others who, in their quests for power and leadership, just felt, any which way, anyhow it goes, let us grab it. And so since that time, they have grabbed this power. To debate that document you call constitution, they also saw the benefit for them. And that's why before the program,
very unitary in nature.
We were talking about somebody, you in the last guest talked about the parliament defeating Obasanjo's third term. And we joined the chorus. It wasn't because of the people, because you had some other persons who were waiting to take over. And so the longer Obasanjo sits there, the shorter their time of taking over. And so that was the fight. It was a class struggle.
I understand.
And so in the same vein, the people that the constitution were handed over to, that why did you think they carefully selected Obasanjo? Why not Olufalaye? Why not Bola Ige? Obasanjo was selected for a reason. Oh, yes, this
selected?
Man. Yes, in 1999.
Wasn't elected?
He was selected by the quote and unquote rulers who were living because they felt comfortable with him. Is the one who won't rock the boat, the one who won't change the status quo.
Okay.
And so over time, after that, that is why every year, every 4 years, it keeps getting worse rather than, seeing improvement. Because you have the worst of us, so sum it up, because you have the worst of us ruling over the best of us. So you can never have a situation where the worst of you will sit down and say, let us agree to agree and agree to disagree.
Okay. You just brought in another aspect to this, and that I am asking, what does it take? How do we even achieve this? Because that's the way forward, and I'm sure that you have all the problems right on the palm of your hand. What's the way forward for us to have? No, from what they've said now, they've dissected our issues. But I'm looking at how do we actually evolve this document? Because I've heard from some of your colleagues saying that sometimes the problem is implementation, that we could still make the best out of the document we have.
The sooner we stopped lying to ourselves, the quicker we are likely to get to a resolution of our issues. If you have constructed a foundation and the design is intended to carry 2 levels, G+2, that's a 2-story building. And then you come round to the architect or the builder and you say, look, you see, I don't particularly like the idea of having a 2-story building. Can we make it a 9-story building? The first thing that the architect or whoever, a responsible builder, will tell you is that you need a different foundation for the structure that you want. Nigerians hate hearing these words, and I've said it ad nauseum, and it is the word, revolution. Revolutions don't necessarily have to be violent. It just means a turnaround. In Nigeria's case, the revolution we require is a change to that fraudulent 1999 constitution. The last, as Liboros has rightly pointed out, prior to the 1960 Independence Constitution, there were several constitutional conferences from Ibadan to Kaduna to Lancaster House to Lagos here to Enugu. People argued back and forth. The minorities spoke their minds. They expressed their fears. The fears of the minority led to the enshrinement of the Bill of Rights in the 1960 Constitution as a recommendation of the Willings Commission. Federalism was the binding glue that made people error, DECO, and the AD. They could have demanded the same restructuring that we are now still begging for. The same thing that was demanded in Eburi is what we were... Every time that the Nigerian people have sought to express their will, they've been smacked down. So when we're talking about perfecting this 1999 Constitution, let me tell you straight up, however much you might pray, however much you might want it, you can wail. We pray a lot in Nigeria. We'll be making noise like bearded chicken. No matter how hard we pray, there is no way I can add an inch to my height. And I'm not going to grow as fair as my sister here. I'll remain the brown man that I am.
The black
Those
man.
are facts. Well, those are facts. The 1999 Constitution is incurably bad, is a fraud, is a document for the enslavement of the Nigerian people, and we need to get rid of it if we must have peace in Nigeria.
You warned me before this conversation, but liberals, I'll go back to examining the judiciary generally, and you might say, "Oh, I'm thinking like a mediocre now in terms of what used to be under military and what we have now. There seems to be more freedom of press. There seems to be more form of expressions, because I think if you were to do this during the military, they would be waiting for you outside the door. So how do we assess our level of constitutional democracy, so to say? Is it 0%?
I would also want to
Is there any such
quickly
thing?
disagree.
Okay.
That we talk more now than under the military. Under the military, you had restricted platforms for airing your
Expression.
view. They were restricted. Now a lot of people talk more. If you had WhatsApp at that time, maybe IBB probably wouldn't have ruled for 8 years or 9 years that he ruled. They even listen more. IBB once said something of Chief Gani Fahimi, that if there was any critic he respected, it was Chief Gani Fahimi, because he was consistent. And so, forget the fact that, yes, some of these people, most of them were arrested. But today, you talk about freedom. How many of us are consistent in demanding for that thing that, yes, this is the way to go? How many of us are consistent?
So the thing is,
and
when
you
it
hear us
benefits you-
argue PDP and APC as though, the alternative to one another, and yet you say freedom. And so that's why some people will still look at you and say, "Oh, I wish the Gani Fahimi, the Bekor and some Kutis were alive today. I wish we could still have the like of Fela Nicola Kuti." Because under these circumstances, their voice were heard the loudest. But today, that you say, "Oh, yes, you have constitutional democracy, there's freedom to talk," how many of those talks have we been consistent with? That's, for me, should be the question, and not whether we're under the military. For military government, in the first place, they knew that it was an aberration. And they also knew that they were in a terrain that they shouldn't be. So at every turn, they were always... We had more protests under military than under democracy. Despite the fact that they would tell you, don't go out there to protest. You had the anti-SAP riots.
And maybe because this one is government of the people, by definition.
That's your
mean,
okay
it's
by
a question
definition.
of we have been
So when
totally
you also
compromised.
look at the interpretation of the laws by the Supreme Court, then you also look at what we have now in your own analysis clearly. Can you say that when you had the likes of Oputa GSC, when you had the likes of Ogudare GSC, when you had the likes of Otutu Obaseki and the rest, and can you truly compare, in all honesty, this set of, judges with what you have now at the Supreme Court, where even somebody will tell you that this judgment, even a year one lawyer will tell you that this judgment cannot stand the test of time in law.
But,
So when you put all of this together, you find out that the people we had then, because of the vociferousness of, a lot of us Nigerians, even our leaders, our rulers, then at every turn were consistently looking behind their back, because they know that Nigerians were not happy and that we insisted. And why do you think also, like Dele has said, that when in 1999, pre the election in 1999, the military government wanted every part of Nigeria to accept or participate in the election, the proposed election. But today, we conduct election and we don't even care whether you participate or whether you accept. We just say election ahead. If you don't, and then you hear a governor or a president tell you, if you are not happy with the outcome, go to court. So when you juxtapose this, really, and that's why the only answer you get is the good old days.
Yeah, but that's where I'm conflicted, and really frustrated, so to say. Yes, because all the time we make reference to the good old days, and just like you're saying, that we didn't have those voices. Are you in any way implying that even in the system, even where we are, there are no voices, or the voices have been compromised? Otherwise, in another 60 years, if we're still here, this same line of thought will continue, and the conversation will be the same.
The voices are fewer. And that's why you will hear the same set of people that demanded for subsidy removal, the same set of people that demanded for fight against corruption, the same set of people that proposed how Nigeria can be better. Now you have them in leadership, and they do the exact opposite of what they had proposed before. Now the same set of people that told you, TM, or what do you call it, that police commissioner that said fire at sight anybody that snatched ballot box. Yeah. Those same people that criticize him,
Joseph Mbu.
Joseph Mbu, they are the same people that will endorse Buhari's statement when he says fire at sight anybody that snatched ballot paper, and those that eulogized him then will criticize him.
Mr. Farotimi, I want you made a very, very controversial statement when you said that you don't want to be accused of complicit in terms of the judiciary. Can you just do an assessment of the judiciary?
Look,
because remember the mantra, the last hope of the masses, as it in any way.
That last hope of the masses was the first frontier that was lost in the war that took away the freedom of the Nigerian people. When I said I do not want to be deemed complicit in the mess that the judiciary has become, I'm a lawyer. For me, law is something of a calling. I have always wanted to be one. But I became a lawyer, and I quickly found that our courts are not any different from our police stations. I found very quickly that what ails the Nigerian custom ails the Nigerian judiciary. I found very quickly that the Nigerian judiciary is peopled by Nigerians. They're not from Ghana. And I say without any equivocation that the Nigerian judicial system is as corrupt as any other part of our nation. That's a fact. We can go around dancing around the issues, but I have seen judgments from the lowest court to the highest in Nigeria today that you can only blame either on incompetence on the part of the jurists or corruption. You can take your pick. Now, I am not unaware of the reflexively defensive posture that most judicial officers and lawyers would take. Those are false umbrages. We can stop lying to ourselves. Some of these corrupt judgments are even more or less institutionalized. When it has been was arrested ostensibly for treason, telling you three things. I don't see you, so who you are does not matter. I will treat all of you exactly the same. He's holding a scale. He's saying, I am just. I will measure you equally, the same way. If you're found wanting, my sword is waiting to punish the person who is found wanting. So there is a presumption of equality before the law. There is a presumption of equal access to that justice. And immediately you're saying that the law rules over all. So each person at every point in time knows what their rights and obligations are. And the law is there as an impartial arbiter. The Nigerian state functions. Tell you we have a dysfunctional system.
So why can't we work as a function?
So many of the people like, there's so many good juries, Oputa and the rest of them. If you begin to compare them to the current set, you are being unfair to the current set because you're suggesting that you are getting something different from what the system intended to produce.
Wow. So basically, it's a systemic issue.
It is a systemic issue.
I am tempted to say that we could continue, but we just have 2 or 3 minutes to round up. Let me get your final thoughts on this for 1.5 minutes. on the way forward. I know NBA has promised us a paradigm shift. I know the president has also
What a
mentioned
smile,
that
bros.
very, very cynical smile. The president has also promised to deepen the democratic culture. What's the way forward? You're on international TV.
Right.
Okay, let me get your thoughts.
Seriously, these are, sometimes when somebody describes...
You have
our
1.5
leaders
minutes.
as we speak now, nobody's even looking at, where... Do you know the chairman of the electoral body in America? Nobody bothers about him, even in Ghana here. So, and here we are, we're talking about deepening democracy, and INEC is the way it is, So, because of time, that's why I said I don't want to go, And then NBA talking about the judiciary, we've said it. When in a state of lawlessness, it is illegal to be law-abiding. What you have, including in the judiciary, is lawlessness. And so how do you now deepen or create, an arm of government, from a lawless, society, lawless situation? You now say, okay, yes, this arm of government would be the one that will uphold the law. When even the way some of the judges are appointed is lawlessness. The last set of judges that were appointed at the FCT High Court.
Inheritance.
Exactly. So if you run through the list, it was a list of, please, the bearer is from me. Interview and employ.
Wow.
And so when you have that kind of foundation, Dele said it, 40 foundation, and then you now say you want to clean up from the top, it will collapse like a pack of cards. And so there is no way, no matter how long we sit down here to say moving forward, the state is by saying, like African China said, poor man when steal Maggie, you go see him face for crime fighter. But rich man when steal money, you know, go see him face for crime fighter.
So we have to give you all. You're okay with what you have said?
No, we are just. So let's give him his one.
He has delivered a long bombshell. So the way forward. There must be a way forward.
Yeah, there must be. If I felt there wasn't a way forward, I would have packed my bags and baggages. I have friends in the Gambia. They will be happy to have me. And I'm black enough to pass for one. Could be a Madingo, so I'm sure they would have me gladly. But I continue to hope, and I hope and believe in the essential goodness of the Nigerian spirit. I know that over 99% of us want a better country. But that better country can only happen when the judiciary itself is independent. But the independence of the judiciary that is not anchored to a systemic change and a national transformational movement, because the putrefaction has seeped through each and every one of us. We've become like people who live next to a public toilet. We don't smell anymore, and we are eating our meals unconcerned.
Wow. Such an analogy.
Yeah. We need to critically examine ourselves and know that we need to turn around.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dele Farotimi, a lawyer and public affairs
Retired.
analyst.
Ex-lawyer.
I'm not one of them again.
Okay, retired lawyer. And we have liberals in Oshoma, who still goes to court and is still a proud lawyer, right?
And Dele was my mate in law school.
Wow.
So
And I haven't seen him since the bushes of Buhari until today, except on TV.
you
Awesome.
owe us
Awesome.
something for bringing both of you
Exactly.
together. We are happy to
Yeah,
have
Don't
Thank you so
worry,
much.
I'll give you new face masks.
We can end it
We
here.
quite appreciate your time. We quickly have to move to our next segment, and that has to do with the economy. Let's see whether there will be some clear way forward on our economy. That'll be all for now.